Hello, everyone. I'm San Francisco Mayor London Breed, and it's great to be here near the DMV site, which is the future home of over 400 units. And we're so excited about what that means for housing production here in San Francisco, because all roads lead to housing. And our goal in everything we do as a city is to make sure that people have a safe, affordable place to call home. And speaking of place to call home, today we're here to announce a lot of the work that we have been doing in order to help those who are unhoused get indoors, get off the streets, and get into a place that is stable and secure and provide them the support that they need in order to ensure that they don't make it back to the streets. More recently, we have been doing some really eventful operations here at the DMV site in particular, because we had seen the encampments grow considerably. And our Healthy Street Operation team has come to this location on many occasions with the goal of trying to help those who are unhoused get into our shelters, get indoors, and we are starting to finally see some success. Now, just to give you that perspective, when I came into office in 2018, there were 609 tent encampments and structures all over San Francisco in every neighborhood. Now, today, we have seen a 60% reduction, and there are now 242, the lowest count that we have had since we started tracking the structures on the streets in every neighborhood throughout San Francisco. And since I've been in office, we have increased shelter capacity by more than 70%, and we have helped over 20,000 people exit homelessness out of our streets, out of shelter, into something more permanent. And over 5,000 of those people were just in the last year through our encampment resolution teams. It is remarkable. Especially after the grants pass decision, we have seen remarkable results, because not only have we been able to enforce the laws of sit, lying, and camping on the streets of San Francisco, we have been able to provide people the resources and the support that they need. We've not only increased our shelter capacity, we've increased our behavioral health beds, we've increased our treatment beds. We are trying to meet people where they are, but the goal is to not let people be comfortable living on the streets of San Francisco when we have an alternative place for you to go. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank so many of the people, the men and women who are on the streets of San Francisco every day. They've been doing this work for years. And when I say years, throughout the pandemic, they were doing this work and putting their lives on the line to help people suffering on the streets of San Francisco. They do the bag and tag policies. They have conversations. They approach these situations with so much kindness, because they understand what it feels like to struggle and to be in similar situations. So the workers of the city and county of San Francisco, whether it's the Public Works Department, whether it's the Department of Emergency Management, whether it's the San Francisco Fire Department, the San Francisco Police Department, the San Francisco Department of Human Services, the Department of Public Health, all of these agencies work collectively together in order to do what's necessary to help meet the needs of the folks that we know who suffer on the streets for so many different reasons. We know that it's not a one-size-fits-all. So having a team of folks who are able to work with people to help get them treatment and to make sure that they don't return to the locations that they have encamped is an important goal of this operation. And we see that as a result of this work, it's finally starting to happen. We're seeing remarkable changes. The streets are looking better. The streets are a lot cleaner. But we also know there's so much more work to do, and we are not letting up until we can get to zero and until we can get people that are on the streets, that are suffering for so many different things, off the streets, the help and the treatment that they need in order to ensure success. So with that, I want to thank so many of the folks who are here today. I want to thank Supervisor Raphael Mandelman joining us here today. He's been a big supporter of this work, a big supporter of our expansion of our shelter beds and all the other things that we're doing to get people off the streets. I want to thank Mary Ellen Carroll, under the Department of Emergency Management. Her and her team have been really instrumental in helping to deliver these results. And I especially want to thank Sam Dodge, because he's really leading the HSOC team. He's helping to guide the team, but I want to just also say that Sam and his team, they know these people. They know their names, they know their stories, they know their situations, and they always, always approach the situation with kindness and with the desire to help people and support people, despite some of the obstructionists who try to interfere with our city workforce and their desire to do their job, which is ultimately to help people. We appreciate everything they do every single day out here on the streets of San Francisco. And so we are so grateful, and we want to just acknowledge their hard work. And with that, I want to turn it over to the Director of the Department of Emergency Management, Mary Ellen Carroll.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I just want to say, and these aren't part of my talking points, but I want to thank you, Mayor Breed, for your leadership. One thing that you have to understand is that the mayor has listened to her people. Sam and his team, we have come to the mayor and her folks and said, this is what we think we need. This is what will work. We need this resource. And always you have provided that to us and enabled us to do this work. San Francisco Department of Emergency Management became involved in the Healthy Streets Operations Center, HSOC, in 2017 is when it started. So we have been involved in this work for a long time. But over time, we've grown our team and grown our efforts to really address the issues on the street. Unsanctioned encampments are not safe for anyone. They're not safe for the people that live in them. They're not safe for the people around them. And many of these encampments tend to be located in our neighborhoods where more vulnerable people live. And the way that we have addressed this crisis and why we have seen improvement is because of the collaborative work of all of the city departments. And the mayor mentioned them all, but I just want to say again, the team from DEM, the fire department, who leads our incident command out on the street, the police department, Department of Public Health, which has greatly expanded their programs over a 24-hour period. We never had that before. Homelessness and supported housing, MTA, and Public Works. And it is true, as the mayor said, these people do incredible work. They deserve all the credit, the people that are in the field. And if you go out there, you will see that they approach this with compassion. They have relationships with people on the street, and we're very proud of the work they've done. We are in the city of St. Francis. It is not okay to leave people on the street, to not engage, and to not provide them services. We cannot and we do not let people languish on the street. And that is what the work that we're representing today, that we're talking about, and that's why we're seeing less people out there. And we will continue to do this work every single day until we help everyone that needs the help that they need out there. So thank you very much. Oh, and I think I am passing it on to Supervisor Mandelman, who has been a huge supporter of our efforts.
Thank you, Mary Ellen Carroll. Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a great day, and I'm generally a glass half empty kind of person. But if you look at the progress that this city has made over the last 6 years in terms of street encampments, it is absolutely remarkable. When Mayor Breed started in 2018 as mayor, and I started as supervisor in District 8, I know in my own district, we had regular encampments in the Mission, along Dolores Street, along Market Street, in the Castro. It was challenging for neighbors and merchants. There was all manner of bad, illegal activity occurring in those encampments. And the reality is that during the pandemic, that got so much worse. Today, we have statistics that show a decline year over year that is truly remarkable. When they did the count in District 8, I think they found 1 tent. And, you know, that is not to say there are no tents ever in District 8, but it has dramatically declined over the last year. but it has dramatically declined even more since the pandemic, and it has declined over the last 6 years. This is not to say that the work is done. The mayor knows the work is not done. I know the work is not done. But I think we need to give credit where credit is due and recognize the folks from the mayor and her office, to the Department of Emergency Management, to the police, to all the agencies, homelessness and supportive housing, HSA, DPH, everybody who's contributed to the DEM, everybody who has led and contributed to this effort. Sometimes I think, the debate in San Francisco gets kind of muddled and lost between a set of folks who are stuck on denouncing sweeps and what they imagine sweeps to be, and then another set of folks who imagine that you can just snap your fingers and enforce the laws. And the reality that I think the mayor and her team have discovered over the last 6 years is that nothing in San Francisco is simple, that San Franciscans demand a complicated intervention. San Franciscans want to know that everyone is getting offered services, that everyone is getting offered shelter, that people with severe mental illnesses are getting the care that they need. And San Franciscans are also demanding that our public spaces be usable for everyone. And there have been, many efforts trying different strategies, but I think that Mary Ellen and Sam and David Nakanishi at HSOC and others have figured out a strategy that has made dramatic progress. So on behalf of my district, I am grateful, and I want to congratulate the mayor and everyone for their work. And I think I'm supposed to introduce Sam Dodge, who's had so many titles in city government. But what are you now, Sam?
The Director of Street Response Coordination.
The Director of Street Response Coordination, Sam Dodge, everyone.
Thank you all. It's really quite an honor to be here today. And first of all, I want to thank Mayor London Breed and Director Carroll for really trusting in me, which has been a great honor and privilege, because I get to work with teams in every department, and our core partners. I really want to thank Chief Scott for trusting me to work with the DMAC officers and lieutenants that work closely with us. I want to thank Chief Tong at the fire department for really trusting with us in their paramedicine unit. And every day at HSOC, we have an incident commander that's a paramedic that helps lead the team on the ground. David Nakanishi, who works with me in my small division, he's the HSOC director, but the core of the team is an outreach team from the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing. And then also around that, we have the incident commander, and public health has an outreach team that's called the BEST team. And those two are doing outreach and noticing and placing people. And in the last, since June 2020, we've placed over 7,900 people from encampments on the streets through the HSOC operations into residential programs without time limits. And that's, mostly shelter, but also some to the hospital, some to residential treatment, and others. And around that core team, we borrow staff from different departments, like Department of Public Works, and an afternoon and evening shift, SFPD, MTA parking control officers. And then around that, we have a broader rim of partnering departments, from 311 to the PUC and the park rangers, great partners. And so it's really a whole government approach, separately and together. And at HSOC, it's that opportunity where we're allowed to really work closely together. In other parts, it's two departments working together, like the street crisis response team, where you have ambulances, a paramedic and an EMT together with a homeless outreach worker or public health outreach worker. So we have these different combinations, and we all work together. And some people ask me, how is this working? Is it this? Is it that? It's not. It's all of it. And it's a persistence and communication. We started at a place where we were very siloed in our responses and in our departments, and it took a lot of trust building and actually doing the work to promote the communication, to understand the value that each department and program can bring to an operation. You know, the team right now is working in the Tenderloin right now. They're making placements, they're outreaching, they're helping people in crisis. You know, we have some abilities to help people urgently, whether it's, binding a wound, or we have transportation on site, and HSH is able to provide us with set aside shelter beds, so we're able to place people directly, walk them in. We're also able to do a journey home if someone has a loving family or a place that they can be. We can do that right from the operation. And this group of people that have dedicated their lives to this and get up every day, they get a reward. They get to see when people on the street are willing to change their lives. And our last partner in this whole project is the people themselves. Obviously, it's a huge change, the path to living in a tent, the path to finding yourself in an alley in the Tenderloin. It's not an easy path. And the willingness of them to work with our professional staff to take advantage of the opportunities we're able to sequester and bring close to them, that's where the magic happens. And when they're ready to change their lives, we're ready to be there with them to help make that happen. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to the mayor for some questions and answers.
Thank you, Sam. And I just want to kind of reiterate, and should have started with this, but we're here at the DMV site, as I said, which will be 400 units of housing. And this area, on a consistent basis, has been, a place for encampments. In fact, on Oak and Baker along the DMV, there used to be, especially during the pandemic, the entire block was filled with encampments. It was cleared for some time. Some of those people were helped. But then it started to reemerge here on Fell and Baker. And then it would move between Fell and Baker between Fell and Oak. And so we finally got it down to about 5 people. And in fact, of the 5, we've been able to help about 4 get into shelter. And there's still one outstanding who clearly struggles with mental illness and is in need of a conservatorship, which is something we can also do as a city. So these are complex issues. These involve people. And what you heard from Sam is that there is a genuine desire to try and understand what people's issues are so that we can provide them the support that they need, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. So when people are trying to imply that we're sweeping people from one place to another, that is not the case. These are people. We want to help them. We can't force them to take our help, but we will do everything we can to try and get them off the streets of San Francisco by offering the services we have available. So with that, we'll open it up to a few questions.
About like a 60% reduction in tents and structures since July, I think it was. We haven't seen a very big increase in shelter occupancy. So where do you think the folks that were staying in tents and structures and vehicles are going?
So we have, and Sam just talked about this, we have a program called Journey Home where we're offering people help to return home. We have people who are taking us up on shelter. Also, some of the families who were in vehicles, they went directly into housing. And so sometimes we have those options as well to, move people into a place to live rather than shelter. So it's a combination of things that we know are happening on the streets. But let's just be honest too, we have, a crisis with drug use. And we know sometimes, we're getting people into treatment beds, but sometimes people may not make it. And that is a tragedy. We've seen our overdose deaths decline significantly by over 50%, but the sad reality is it's still happening. We've increased our shelter beds, we've increased our behavioral health beds, and we increased our treatment beds. So we have so many more options. And I think what needs to be, really communicated is there is not a one thing that helps to make a difference. We want to make sure we're offering people something to get them into a situation so that they, are able to get the support they need.
When it comes so this is a tent reduction. Do we know, this doesn't include, I'm guessing, people living in vehicles, RVs, and do we know if those numbers have increased or decreased?
So the tents are specifically structures. So this is a reduction in that. But for example, as far as vehicles, we had, just to give you a quick example, and we can get you the details around vehicles, because along Zoo Road, we had about 50 families. And because of the work we did with those families, half of those families accepted our offer. Others chose to leave the location, and we still have a number of families who are still there. So we know we still have a lot of work to do along people living in their vehicles. But again, we are offering alternatives, and we're seeing more progress than we've seen in a long time, because we're making it harder for people to live on the streets, live in their vehicles, especially when we have another option.
How much has shelter actually increased in the last quarter?
In the last quarter, I don't have those numbers. I'd have to get them back to you. But since 2018, it's increased by over 70%.
So there are some residents who have noticed the difference, that there are fewer tents, but they are still seeing that there are people congregating in certain areas. This, I guess, is a question for you and for Sam. What to do about that? And in fact, just as we're speaking, there's a group over here that has congregated on a mattress on the streets as we're speaking.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of real-time challenges that come when people don't have their tents.
And so the good news is that we can enforce the law. So the officers can go to a location like that and enforce sitting and lying on the streets, and Public Works can come and take the mattress. Before, we could just probably take the mattress, but nevertheless, we couldn't enforce sitting and lying on the streets of San Francisco. And when we talk about congregating, I just want to be very clear. If you are not breaking the law, then you have the right to, congregate just like any other San Franciscan. But if you are using drugs, if you are selling drugs, if you're doing anything illegal, if you're blocking the sidewalk, all of those things will be enforced. I think that's the biggest difference.
Hi, Mayor. Thanks for taking questions. The first question is, how much of a tool, an effective tool, is care court conservatorships? Have you been able to use those tools effectively in this crisis? And then also, maybe police chief too, have you seen an increased willingness of people to come inside given the increased rhetoric around can't stay here?
Yeah.
For those who refuse, had there been an increase in arrests?
So I can speak to care court specifically. I think there's I believe some misinformation about, care court being something that is going to solve everything. And care court is very specific. It's really about people who suffer from schizophrenia. There's the specific definition, and it's voluntarily. So it's not as if we can force someone to use this as an option. Whereas the conservatorship laws that have changed in San Francisco, we have to go through the 5150 72-hour hold process and go through a process to, force people into a conservatorship in San Francisco. That's a lot different, and that's a better tool. It allows us to dual diagnose, like someone who is suffering from mental illness, substance use disorder, and chronically homeless. Those are things that are qualifiers to allow us to begin that process. San Francisco has over 600 people in a conservatorship. Some of those people are living independently, but we now have more tools in order to conserve more people through that particular process, more so than care courts, again, which is voluntarily. So our hope is that many of those tools will work. I don't have the latest data with me to provide you with information about that. And I think that Sam could give a better perspective of what people are accepting and based on the work that they're doing, and the chief can provide a better perspective around the information related to arrest. But to be very clear, we are enforcing the law, and we are doing everything we can to really focus on compliance. We want people to comply. We don't want to necessarily arrest people and take them into custody, but we are going to use every tool we have at our disposal in order to address this challenge.
Yes. So what people are
Yeah, just the increased rhetoric, the increased, like, essentially crackdown on the encampments. Are you seeing people who have historically been pretty tough to reach? Are you seeing them more willing to come inside now and accept help?
Yes, we are seeing people willing to come inside, but this is a many year process. So a lot of the locations we do return to for various reasons. They avail themselves more easily for encampment. So, and in some of those locations, we do, find people that we repeatedly engage, and it's sort of there's a lot of internal clock, like they might be time for them, they're ready, there's a health incident or others, and they're ready to make a big change, and we're able to work with them to do that. I do say, HSH has done an amazing job really standing up, expanding capacity, and through the pandemic the system really expanded, and then bringing down the shelter in place hotels meant that we were housing people and getting people into transitional settings, and that whole group was very expanded group is working itself through the system and is really benefiting from all the extra supportive housing that the city brought on. So we're finally feeling the rewards of that, and having extra capacity in our existing system. So we're able to offer people a pretty diverse array of opportunities. We have cabin communities now, the one in the Mission, the one at 33 Golf. They work very well for certain people. We have a great navigation center in many neighborhoods, and those are very popular for a lot of people. We also have non-congregate opportunities like hotels and others that can be also a good fit. So having this diversity of options has been great, and one of the things that we piloted with HSOC and brought to the larger system is a street to home program where some of our legacy supportive housing units had some vacancies, and we had people that were eligible on the street. We were able to match directly to those vacant housing units, and so that has also been another part. So really bring it all there.
Sorry. We'll follow up with Sam and everybody else. We'll have Supervisor Mandelman give a quick bite, and then we're going to wrap.
Yeah. Yeah, just a few points about some of the questions that have been asked. So there was the question about where have people gone, and I think that gets at the question of what was happening in these encampments. They are overwhelmingly correlated with drug use and drug sales. And we know that there are people in these encampments who have placements, who these fine workers have actually gotten into hotel rooms and into shelters, and they still come back and spend time on the streets because they're returning to that culture and the use of drugs. I cannot prove causation, but I will tell you, overdose deaths have declined at the same time as the increase in drug enforcement and the disruption of these encampments. So we are actually saving lives, I believe, in what we are doing. In terms of care court and conservatorship, San Francisco, the mayor has made a commitment that San Francisco is going to use care court to the extent that we can use care court. But as she said, it is a very limited tool, and the more powerful tool for people with severe mental illness is the expanded conservatorship, and her Department of Public Health has stepped up temporary conservatorships. They are increased measurably in the last year, and there are more people who are now under our Office of Public Conservator. And the real challenge we have is, frankly, we need the state's help in having appropriate placements for people who need to be in a locked facility. The mayor and I and a working group with the Department of Public Health are working on this problem, but the reality is this is a problem for counties throughout California, and we need the state's help.
Do you not think overdose deaths increased access to buprenorphine?
I think you can look at many factors, but we've been doing a lot to push buprenorphine and methadone out, and that is great. But we were told by some advocates that when we stepped up enforcement and we did more to disrupt encampments, we were going to see an increase in overdose. And in fact, we have seen the reverse.